So a couple of weeks ago, I dropped my top 4 underrated players of the 2021 NBA season, and if you haven't seen that video, make sure you go and check it out. But as you can see from the title, we're going to be doing the opposite of what we talked about in that video, and we're going to talk about the overrated players of the 2021 season. But before we get started, make sure you drop a like on this video and comment your opinions down below. I'm sure this video is going to be very polarizing, so if you agree, please make sure you drop a like, because I already know the fans of certain players are going to dislike no matter what. But before I get into my bag, I'd like to give a shout out to the sponsors of this video, StarStock. StarStock is a new and improved marketplace for sports card hobbyists to buy, sell, and invest in their favorite athletes. Their goal is to enable sports fans to instantly trade cards like never before. Sign up today with my promo code YoungMustard and receive $10 free whenever you make a deposit of $10 or more. But without further ado, let's talk about our first player coming in to start off this list. Now, for years on this channel, I have been called a Russell Westbrook hater. Ironically, my first video ever on YouTube, you can go back and check it, I talked about how I believed his MVP season was overrated. And mind you, that video didn't come out a couple of years after his MVP season, in which now a lot of people actually think it's overrated. Ironically, I dropped that video in the middle of his MVP season. So it's safe to say I am very critical of Russell Westbrook. But the reason that I am critical of Russell Westbrook is because I assume that we should hold him to a high standard. But yet it feels like every single season we are continuously lowering the bar for Russell Westbrook time in and time out. And this year was another example of that. As coming into this season, many people thought there would be a bottom seeded team in the Eastern Conference, but yet they were struggling to make the playoffs throughout their majority of the season. And yes, I understand that Russell Westbrook did have a great stretch to end the year, and trust me, it was amazing. I'm not trying to take anything away from that, but the only reason that Russell Westbrook had to have that stretch to get the Wizards in the playoffs is because Russell Westbrook played bad to start off the season. As in the first 25 games, Russell Westbrook had some of the worst shooting splits of his entire career, shooting 42% from the field, 27% from 3, and 60% at the free throw line. And many people are going to look at that and say injuries were a big reason why, but that kind of proves my point about Russell Westbrook, because for an aging point guard that is injury prone and heavily relies on athleticism, it really limits how impactful you could be, because at the end of the day, the best ability is availability, and Russell Westbrook's availability over the last couple of seasons has been very questionable to say the least. And the fact that we're going to praise Russell Westbrook for helping Bradley Beal lead this team to an 8th seed, I think is kind of ridiculous, because this isn't a situation like Steph Curry in Golden State where the help around him just isn't that adequate. Russell Westbrook is playing along the second leading scorer in the NBA in his backcourt, but yet we're going to praise him for getting the 8th seed in the weaker conference, and they're below 500. Russell Westbrook is not a young point guard trying to establish himself in this league. He is a veteran who has done everything in this league aside from winning a championship. But yet, if you come up and criticize his game, like his lack of a jump shot, low IQ that results in stupid turnovers, and the fact that he can't even make free throws anymore, all of a sudden you've been labeled a hater that doesn't appreciate the greatness of Russell Westbrook. Yeah, cut that shit out. I mean, look at all the great young point guards that are already starting to rival Russell Westbrook. Guys like Trae Young, Ja Morant, De'Aaron Fox, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Those guys you could argue are better than Russell Westbrook as we speak, but because Russ is averaging that triple-double, it's blasphemous to even consider it, right? And by the way, I'll say this before we move on to the next player. The fact that people are all of a sudden starting to put Russell Westbrook in their top 5 point guards of all time is starting to scare me. And I get it, everybody's list is subject to their own opinion, but there's only so much outrageous takes I can take. No pun intended. But nonetheless, let's move on to our next player. Now, as a lifetime Bulls fan, this one hurts, but I have to put him on this list to be objective. Nikola Vucevic is one of the most skilled bigs in the league, and I actually admire his work ethic for growing his game and adjusting to the modern NBA, becoming a stretch 5. But the reason that I had to put Vucevic on this list is because I think we overrated just how impactful Vucevic is on an NBA roster. Because even before his time in Chicago, though Vucevic did put up solid numbers in Orlando, that team wasn't ever going anywhere and he was their only source of offense. So of course he's going to get the touches to kinda inflate his stats just a little bit. And like I said, they were an 8th seed. They were a terrible offensive team that relied on defense to win them games, which led to multiple seasons of being a barely 500 team and in some years below 500. And once he got to Chicago, it was fairly obvious that defensively he did not have the players in Chicago that he did in Orlando, which meant he was a target on the defensive end way more than a lot of people expected. And I don't blame him too much. It's not like he has that much help on defense. Like I said earlier, Kobe White isn't a great defender on the perimeter. And when you have Lauri Markkanen that you're sharing a front court with, who is just straight up ass, yeah, there's only so much you can do. And the fact that he also made the All-Star team over Domantas Sabonis, I will not let that go. Because not only was Sabonis putting up better numbers in my opinion, but Vucevic was on an Orlando Magic team that was not in the playoff picture whatsoever. Meanwhile, Domantas Sabonis had the Pacers in the playoffs at the time of the voting. It is ridiculous how we view Vucevic at this level that he realistically is just not on. And the fact that we gave up 2 first-round picks to get a player that at best is going to get us to what, an 8th seed? Yeah, that's too much value on Nikola Vucevic because he may be good, but he's not that good. Now, I don't know how many Brandon Ingram fans are out there, but I do know they exist. A lot of y'all followed him from his time at Duke to LA and now in New Orleans. But as good as Brandon Ingram is and as well as he's improved as a player, I think we have to have a conversation about how impactful is Brandon Ingram really, because he's a good offensive player with the ability to space the floor, mid-range game nice, can attack the basket, gets the free throw line, and on top of his amazing scoring ability, he's even developed into a solid playmaker. But the issue with Ingram is not offense, it is defense, because with his size and frame, he consistently struggles to guard wings on the perimeter. And when you're in the same conference as guys like LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, Luka Doncic, Paul George, and a multitude of great wings, that's going to be a problem that teams can take advantage of time in and time out. And when you look at this Pelicans team, offense was not an issue for them. It was defense. They finished top 10 in points per game and top half in offensive rating. They had no issue putting the ball in the basket. The problem was on the defensive end, as they finished bottom 10 in both opponents' points per game and defensive rating. And when you look at the players around Ingram and Zion, Lonzo Ball, Eric Bledsoe, and Steven Adams are all capable players on the defensive end. The issue is Zion and Ingram. And look, Zion is a second-year player. We can save calling him overrated for next season. But in the case of Brandon Ingram, he was a solid and capable defender during his time with the Lakers. So it seems like the more he has exerted himself on the offensive end, there's a chance that might be affecting his effort on the defensive end. And if that's the case, then I really question how impactful Ingram can really be, especially if he is your number 2 option. We have finally arrived at our final player, and I'm sure Miami Heat fans are fuming to see Jimmy Buckets on their screen. Now, before I get started, let me say I do not hate Jimmy Butler. Matter of fact, I have a lot of respect for Jimmy, and he's one of my favorite players in the league. As I said earlier, I am a Chicago Bulls fan, and that's where Jimmy started his career, and he saved us from the trenches of the Derrick Rose era, or should I say, the ending of the Derrick Rose era. So I have nothing but love for Jimmy Buckets, but we have to come to some realization that Jimmy Butler is not the player that a lot of people thought he was after his run in the bubble. And I'm not here to call him a fraud in particular, because Jimmy was hitting some crazy shots in the bubble, and whether you want to contribute that to the bubble atmosphere or not, Jimmy has a pretty impressive playoff resume filled with clutch moments nonetheless. but we have to look at the fact that Jimmy is just not as talented as a lot of people think he is. Because let's not forget that people were calling Jimmy Butler a top 10 player in the NBA. And I don't care how good his bubble run was, there was never a point in time where that was true. Because even before the bubble started and after the bubble started, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Steph Curry, Anthony Davis, Nikola Jokic, Damian Lillard, Luka Doncic, Joel Embiid, Jason Tatum, Chris Paul, Paul George, Donovan Mitchell, and I could keep going on, are all better than Jimmy Butler. And yes, he had a great playoff run, but we've seen numerous players have great playoff runs, and it's just one playoff run. They didn't win the championship or anything. They just got to the finals and got smacked by the Lakers. Jimmy had great performances. I can't take that away from him, but it's very obvious that we embellished in that moment far too much because he was exposed against the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, Giannis was going over all his screens and Jimmy couldn't take advantage of it one single time. But yet, I'm supposed to believe he's a top 10 player? Please, cut the bullshit. Because as good as Jimmy is and as great as his intangibles are, that doesn't make him a superstar. There are a lot of great players in this league that are way more skilled and have just as many intangibles as Jimmy Butler. And guess what? They also have a bag, something that Jimmy Butler does not have. But that concludes this video. I'm sure a lot of people are angry about certain players' placements on this list. Let me know down below in the comment section all of your frustrations, and I will respond to as many people as possible. Also, do not forget to check out my second channel, If I Must. The link is down below in the description box. And also check out the Nothing But Action podcast. All of the links for our YouTube channel and our audio platforms are also in the description box down below. But that concludes this video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I'm out. Have a blessed day. Peace.